Is it really possible in 2026 to legally move to Europe, obtain a residence permit without quotas, lotteries, or complicated competitive programs, and still keep maximum freedom? Yes. And one of the most underestimated options today is residence permit in Serbia. Serbia often stays under the radar, but for many people, it becomes a fast and realistic starting point. Clear rules, a loyal attitude toward foreigners, and real opportunity to legalize your stay without multi-step schemes or artificial barriers. In this video, we'll break down Serbian temporary residence honestly and practically, how to obtain it, which options exist, where the pitfalls are, and who this route is actually suitable for. Hello and welcome. My name is Mia, and you're watching the Visa Dan channel, where we make immigration, visas, residence permits, and citizenship clear and achievable. If you're thinking about relocation, legal residence in Europe, or creating a solid backup plan for the future, this video is definitely for you. Why Serbia is non-obvious but strong choice. Many people are surprised when they hear Serbia mentioned, so let's start with the facts. Serbia is an EU candidate country with an open economy, visa-free short-term entry for many nationalities, neutral politics, and a very pragmatic migration policy. Here is the key point. Serbia does not expect a perfect profile. You're not asked why you left your previous country, no one evaluates your political views, and there are no artificial filters. The government is focused on one thing, that you stay legally and can support yourself. That is exactly why Serbia is often chosen as a first European step. The main and the most reliable way to obtain Serbian temporary residence is through opening a company. It is important to understand this correctly. Serbia does not require your business to generate large profits from the day one. Here, residence is not a reward for success. It's a tool to help you start. In practice, it works like this. You register a legal entity, usually a sole proprietorship or a small limited liability company. The business can be service-based, IT, consulting, marketing, design, trade, or online services. A physical office is not always mandatory, but a legal address is required. After the company is registered, you apply for temporary residence as a director or founder. What matters the most at this stage is the formal side. The company documents must be in order. You need a lease agreement for the legal address. A local bank account is required. You're not obliged to hire employees immediately. Income at the beginning can be minimal. However, there is an important nuance that many people overlook. The company must be real and active. Zero reporting year after year is one of the fastest ways to face problems during renewal. At Visa then, we always explain this clearly. A Serbian company is not a fake cover. It's a practical instrument that must be correctly integrated into your life and financial structure. Another possible route is residence through employment. On paper, it looks simple. A job contract equals a residence permit. But in reality, this option has the most pitfalls. The core requirement is straightforward. The employer must be a real Serbian company and must officially obtain a work permit for you in compliance with Serbian labor law. Not through connections, not through intermediaries, and not through informal agreements. In practice, this route works well for those who already have a Serbian employer and are relocating within an international company or are genuinely in demand on the local market. But there is an important warning. If someone offers you a solution like, we will formally employ you, you pay a fee, and you don't actually need to work, this is almost always a risk. Serbia has significantly tightened control over fictitious employment. Migration authorities now assess not only documents, but also logic. They look at what the company actually does, why it needs this employee, whether the position matches your experience, and whether there is real activity. Even if a first residence permit is approved, this does not guarantee smooth renewals. Most problems arise exactly at the extension stage. where inconsistencies become obvious. That is why employment-based residence should never be treated as a shortcut. It is a working tool, but only when used correctly. Our goal is not just to obtain the first residence card, but to make sure that you can live and renew your status calmly and predictably. If you want residence through property, here is what you should know. Many people assume that buying an apartment automatically gives you residence. In Serbia, it is a bit more complex. Property ownership can serve as a basis for residence, but only if the property is residential, registered in your name, and you can confirm that you actually live there. At the same time, owning property does not remove the requirement to prove financial means. One of the most common questions we hear is now, how much money is required for Serbian residents? The good news is that Serbia does not demand large amounts on your bank account. Usually, it is enough just to show funds covering basic living expenses. The nuance is the source of funds. Remote income, dividends, or business income are acceptable. But unexplained money on a card without clear origin is a serious mistake. This is why we always help structure the financial part properly. In practice, this is where the most refusals happen. The Serbian first temporary residence is usually issued for 6 to 12 months, but recently it is not uncommon for it to be 2 to 3 years at a time. Recently, however, 3-year permits have become also more common. Renewal is the most critical stage. Obtaining the first permit is often easier than keeping it. For renewal, you must prove that the original basis still exists, that you actually lived in Serbia, that your business or employment is functioning, and that there were no migration violations. After several years, you can apply for permanent residence and later for citizenship. Serbia is not about fast passports. It is a long-term strategy for those who plan ahead. Advantages of Serbia that are rarely discussed. First, tax flexibility. With proper structuring, the tax burden can be lower than in many EU countries. Second is adaptation. Serbia is one of the most comfortable countries for relocation. Mentality is welcoming. Everyday issues are resolved quickly. Third, freedom of movement. Serbia is an excellent base if you are not ready to fully commit to the EU immediately. For many people, Serbia becomes a reliable backup runway. It is often used as an intermediate stage before other countries. With Serbian residents, applying for visas becomes easier and the country proves a stable starting point. Some common mistakes that we see in practice, for example, one of the most frequent mistakes is trying to do everything independently based on forums and outdated experiences. Migration law, and more importantly, its application change regularly. What worked for someone last year may not work today. Requirements, document wording, and even local migration office practices change. People often believe they followed instructions correctly, but small errors later lead to refusals or renewal problems. Another common mistake is using fictitious grounds, paper businesses, fake leases, nominal addresses, or formal contracts without logic. These schemes sometimes pass the first application, but almost always surface later, usually at a renewal. The third mistake is the lack of strategy. People obtain Serbian residence, celebrate the first success, but do not think about what comes next. What will they show next year? How will they renew? What will happen if income changes? As a result, residence becomes a source of constant stress instead of stable solution. That is why at Visa we always look beyond one document. Our goal is not just to obtain residence, but to build a clear and sustainable model of living in Serbia where each step logically follows the previous one. How Visa works with Serbian residents? We always start with one key question: why Serbia and what is next? First, we analyze your situation, income, goals, family, and long-term plans. Then we select the most appropriate basis: business, employment, property, or a combination. After that, we handle registration documents, submission, and support. And most importantly, we think not only about the first residence permit, but also about renewal. If you're considering Serbian temporary residence, not as an adventure, but as a real step toward legal life in Europe, contact us. The Visa Den team will select the optimal solution for your situation, handle documentation, and guide the process to a successful result. This was Mia, Visa Den. Subscribe to the channel, leave your questions in the comments, and see you in the next videos.